Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the best session of today and the week. So you are in the right spot, and you're right where we want you to be. So welcome. This session is organized by the GEO Secretariat, as well as the initiative known as the Earth Observation for the Sustainable Development Goals, or the acronym is EO for SDG. So I'm Lawrence. United States and as well as with NASA and part of the leadership team for NASA Earth Science. There's two other co-chairs for this initiative. One is Paloma Marodia from Mexico, and INEGI, or the National Institute of Statistics and Geography. And Osamu Achai is from Japan and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. We also have the executive director who's online. It's Arji Kavada. She is a colleague of mine from the United States and from NASA. And then also from the GEO Secretariat, we have Laurent Deroux, and he is the SDG coordinator at the GEO Secretariat, and he'll be helping to lead the panel in a little bit. So I would say that the past year has been an incredibly productive one for this initiative. As you'll hear a little bit more from Arji, we updated our strategic plan. We initiated a new 10-member board for the EO for SDG initiative to give more leadership opportunities for people within the GEO community. And we have the chair, Lorenzo De Simone from the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. So he's on the panel. Welcome, Lorenzo. We further expanded the urban toolkit that launched in February 2021. We've done projects on multiple SDGs, including SDG 6 on water, 11 on urban, 13 on climate, 15 on life on land, and you'll hear Arji and others talk a little bit more. Arji also was the lead author on a published book that captured a number of case studies. And this is the fourth year of our EO for SDG awards, and you'll hear us announce them on Thursday evening. And so again, welcome to this particular session. So we are at the midway point on the SDGs. We have done a lot over the years to show the value and the connections of Earth observations to the SDGs, and working with multiple countries, as well as throughout GEO and a number of different organizations, custodian agencies, and others. And so this session really focuses on what's needed to sort of advance and power progress towards the SDGs and towards 2030, and really promoting solutions at speed, at scope, and at scale. And so we're looking for things like partnerships and modes of user engagement, capacity development needs, resources, and other things. And we're hoping that this panel and the questions and the discussion can help highlight some of those things that have worked well that we want to do more of, and additional things that we want to add in. And so we really want to be identifying actions as well as confirming priority areas for 2023 as well as beyond. So next, this session includes a summary by the executive director, Arji. And then we're going to have a short time for questions and discussion, and then we're going to have a panel led by Laurent. So at this point, let me turn it over to Arji to give a short presentation about the past year.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Hello, everyone. It's so good to be with you, albeit virtually, and I wish I was there with you in person. So we'll dive right into this quick presentation, as Lawrence mentioned. So let's go to the next slide, or would you like me to share my slides? Can somebody confirm? Is it possible to share my slides, or should I share my screen? Not hearing anything. Let me see if I can share my screen. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So hopefully everybody can see my screen and still hear me. I'm going to go ahead. Yes, okay, thank you for confirming. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So again, welcome to our side event, and thank you very much everyone for being here and online. So I wanted to briefly start this short presentation and follow-up discussion by noting that there have been a number of landmark international policy agreements, including, of course, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, but also others like the New Urban Agenda, the Climate Paris Accord, the Convention on Biological Diversity, among others, that have really been highlighting the importance of consensus and cooperation between different nations and stakeholders and across sectors to make advances toward a more sustainable and resilient future. And so some of the work and also discussions that you'll hear today will focus on how we can really help integrate and leverage activities and tools and data to support these multilateral environmental agreements, which in some cases can operate in silos. And so how can we maximize the impact of Earth observations to advance many of these international policies and support really countries in decision making and in making progress towards sustainable development. And so here I have a little bit of information and maybe a refresher for those of you that may not be as familiar with the EU4SDG initiative. As Lawrence mentioned, it was created back in late 2015, early 2016 upon the adoption of the 2030 Agenda. We are a growing international network composed of different stakeholders from government, non-governmental organizations, different levels of government, so from local, city, national government, as well as regional organizations. We're working also with the private sector, but also with the UN and other multilateral entities. And you see many of them highlighted here on the slide. I want to bring some examples like the city of Thessaloniki in Greece, the city of Pereira in Colombia. We're working with national level governments from Costa Rica, and I think you have some people in the room from the Office of Statistics in UAE. We're working with the city of Johannesburg in South Africa. So many diverse stakeholders, again, across academia, different government levels, and also non-governmental organizations. And so I do invite you to visit our website at eu4sdg.org. And also if you're on social media, follow us on Twitter or Facebook to get more regular information and updates on activities and other highlights pertaining to sustainable development and Earth observations. And so as Lawrence mentioned, one of the activities that we focused on in the past year has been to look at our strategic plan and really look at the period, the upcoming period between 2023 and 2025. And also, as GEO is approaching the end of the 2016 through 2025 decade and is looking at the next post-2025 decade, we've also looked at our strategic implementation plan through that lens. And so a lot of the emphasis and attention we've placed, and you will hear more about this also from our panel, has been on increasing integration and collaboration across the GEO work program, and so how EU4SDG is working across the GEO work program to also help promote open knowledge, support scaling up of successful applications and areas where Earth observations has already delivered impact on advancing sustainable development, and also supporting areas where we can help countries maximize synergies to achieve multiple SDGs and resolve existing trade-offs. In addition, we've recognized that we've engaged to some extent with the private sector, but would like to do more in that area. And so this is also an open invitation if you're coming also from any sector, but also including the private sector, would love to work more with you and identify ways to do that. Lawrence mentioned that we also looked at strengthening our EU4SDG governance and initiated a new EU4SDG board. Really excited to have this fantastic group of EU4SDG board members working with the EU4SDG leadership and the broader initiative to really advance these objectives. You can see some of the key duties and responsibilities that the board is responsible for. And so these include community outreach, but also supporting this integration with the GEO work program. And so the board members are currently thinking about how they can be serving as ambassadors, EU4SDG ambassadors to other GEO work program activities and what that will entail. I wanted to briefly highlight the members here. And again, congratulate them and share how excited we are to have such a diverse group of folks around from across different regions, sectors, and backgrounds. And as Lawrence mentioned, recognize also the chair of the board, Lorenzo, from the FAO. So next, in the next few slides, I'm going to briefly highlight a few EO4SDG activities that we've completed in the past year. Again, these are just select highlights, and I'm going to go quickly through these, but please feel free to talk to Lawrence, Laurent, Chris, Lorenzo, and others in the room, and also reach out to me if you have questions or want to talk more about them. And so one of the things I wanted to highlight has been this SDG geospatial roadmap. And so this was adopted at this year's Statistical Commission annual meeting. Its key importance is that it recognizes geospatial data, including Earth observations, as official data for the SDGs, and includes key messages, but also guidance on how countries can go about integrating statistics and geospatial information to advance SDG targets and indicators. And so EO4SDG, as a member of the UN Working Group on Geospatial Information, contributed input, including particular use cases and examples of where this has already happened, so where countries have leveraged their observations to advance particular indicators, and also provided general input to the geospatial roadmap. Lawrence also highlighted the Earth Observations Toolkit for Sustainable Cities and Human Settlements. And so this is another activity that our initiative is very proud of. And so it's a collaboration with the UN Human Settlements Program, UN Habitat, the GEO Secretariat, and a number of partners, over 40 international partners across government, academia, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector. So what it entails is an online knowledge resource that gets continually updated with new data, tools, as well as use cases of how Earth observations are supporting urban sustainable challenges. So looking at things like access to open green spaces in cities, looking at the sustainable land use efficiency, or looking at aspects of access to infrastructure, looking at exposure of people to different types of hazards or to air pollution in cities. And so these are just some of the areas that this toolkit is addressing. And along with this online resource, there is a community of practice that has been developing around this toolkit that really helps provide opportunities for exchanging knowledge and experiences from city to city and city to country. And so in the past year, we've done a number of trainings, both in-person trainings, like one that took place recently in Warsaw, Poland, at the World Urban Forum, as well as online trainings, like the one that we completed in February, but attracted over 1,200 participants from 102 countries. And we've also been working to pair local government representatives with earth scientists to really help bring the toolkit to the cities and support local development plans and local voluntary reviews and contributions. So we really want to work with more cities around the world. And so we definitely invite you to both visit the eotoolkit.unhabitat.org and reach out if you want to get involved. Let us know how we can help and also how you can contribute. Next, briefly, the next use case I wanted to highlight is this one from our colleagues in Japan. And Lawrence mentioned that JAXA, on behalf of Japan, is one of the co-chairs of the Earth Observations for Sustainable Development Goals initiative. And so they've been working very closely with the National Statistics Office and other ministries in Japan to help integrate Earth observation data with statistics and other sources of information to support different indicators at the national level in Japan. And so here you see two indicators highlighted, one that looks at land use efficiency and one that focuses on the Green Mountain Index. And so JAXA worked really through this working group to help validate the use of Earth observation data for at the national level, with the result of having now this data being used officially to monitor and report these indicators in Japan And so this is a great example of collaboration between a space agency, a statistics office, and others at the national level. And also a great example of where a global method, for example, developed by the FAO, but already integrated global Earth observation data, has then been applied and validated at the national level. And so Earth observations are now being used at the national level. The next last two examples that I'm going to highlight. So one is focusing on Ghana and actually in the southwestern part of Ghana. And so this team here, led by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Daniel Hood. So American scientists have been working with Ghanaian experts from the Statistical Service as well as Ghana's Space Science and Technology Institute to analyze deforestation using Earth observation data from Landsat and other satellites, especially focusing on areas affected by illegal mining activities. And so the team has helped develop a number of tools to provide this analysis and work with the government entities I mentioned to really help make this information useful for government practices. One additional outcome from this work has been a recent publication that again involved collaboration for both Ghanaian and US scientists. In addition, a lot of work has been taking place led by our colleague Lola Fatoyimbo from NASA, who's also a strong contributor of both EO for SDG and the GEO Wetlands Initiative in supporting monitoring of mangroves and other ecosystems like tidal marshes and seagrasses using Earth observation data. And so this work is also a strong example of collaboration and in-country partners in different countries in West Africa, including Benin, Nigeria, Senegal, among others. And they've been working across governments, but also different NGOs, non-governmental organizations, to help apply the data, disseminate the data, and also support a number of efforts around national forest restoration and mangrove forested area restoration activities. Next, the last two slides that I have, and I will complete my presentation. So Lawrence highlighted this Earth observation applications book that we recently published through the American Geophysical Union. And so this is a fantastic resource that helps bring a lot of these efforts together, efforts led not only by the EU4SDG initiative, but by the broader GEO community, other GEO work program activities, as well as activities of GEO collaborators and partners. And so it highlights a lot of different case studies pertaining to mangroves monitoring, looking at aspects of water quality, looking at aspects of urban sustainability and resilience, as well as different technology solutions like open data cubes, among others. And so that's another resource that we've recently completed and I'm excited about and is available. And the last thing I will mention is a plug also for Thursday's closing session that will announce our 2022 GEO-SDG award winners. And so I invite all of you to join that session in person and online to both help recognize and also learn from these fantastic projects and organizations that are using Earth observations to advance sustainable development goals. And so with that, I want to thank you very much and turn it back to Lawrence and everybody in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Argy. So thanks for this review about all the support given by the EO4SDG initiative together with other initiatives with who you are collaborating. And as you see, it's a very complete initiative. It goes from giving value to the people with awards, providing some scientific content. You've shown it with very high quality AGU publication, to having platforms to distribute data and tools, to having a roadmap. I mean, it's really amazing how this initiative was able to answer a very complex agenda, that is the SDG agenda. And at Midway, I think we can already compliment all the work that has been done. As you say, it's just we are half the way, but already we have a roadmap, we have a strategy, we have partnership, we have a community existing. I think it's a lot already. So very, I mean, it's many indicators, it's more than 200 indicators to map all them where Earth observation can contribute. I think it's a lot. So thank you, Argy, for that. We have 7 minutes of question and discussion. So I open the floor for please short questions so that Lawrence and RG can answer. And also, if you have any longer comment, I would ask you to make it later after outside of the room. So any question, any comment for this first interventions? I know it's always hard to make the first question, but don't be shy. Yeah. So Lawrence, I think what we can do is maybe before going to the panel discussion, seeing if
Laurent, this is RG. I see Aditya online and he has a question.
Oh, yeah, there are some questions online. Can we see the chat, please? Chat's on the other side, Yeah.
Aditya, are you? Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Aditya Agrawal and RG, thanks very much for that presentation. I was recently in Oman with Thunderbird School of Global Management teaching a course on spatial planning to government officials there. Within the context of the work that Thunderbird doing is on executive leadership. And RG, thanks very much because you made me aware of the EO toolkit for urban applications. I forget the exact name for it, but they found it to be very interesting and very useful. But for these tools that are being made available under the program, if there's further capacity development or training or those types of aspects, is there any kind of mechanism that's set up where the government of Oman can reach out to try and figure out how to build some more capacity around some of these tools?
Yes, thank you, Aditya. So I'll take a quick stab at that question. So I think we have, as mentioned, organized a number of trainings, right? And so we do have opportunities for people to share feedback or ask questions that then get delivered to UN Habitat, who is the manager of the platform. We also have, as I mentioned, this community of practice that does allow for pairings of people that have expertise and are practitioners or experts in earth science with city partners. And so people from Oman could reach out and then we could see how we can leverage existing resources within the toolkit initiative to address specific needs. And so, of course, depending on then the request, we would have to see if this is feasible within the existing resources or if something more could be done. But that's how we've been addressing, at least for now, particular requests.
Great, thank you.
Aditya, this is Lawrence. Thanks for the question. I guess turning it back to you, do you think there's enough demand in Oman that we could do a train the trainer, so that if we were to train some people that they could then train others in Oman and perhaps they could train others in the region? So do you think, did you get a sense that there was enough demand to support that?
I do. So part of our approach for this leadership course is that there's a technical component to that. And I think as part of that technical component, if we could do a train the trainers type of a program, that could be very useful for some of the applications that they're looking at. So I would love to be able to follow up on that.
And would it be beyond urban or mainly urban? Is your concern of other application you would be interested for capacity development?
I think that at the spatial planning is at the national level. The ministries that are involved are everything from environment to Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. So I think the applications span both urban and regional level for the country.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more question or comment. If everyone in the room or on the chat, please don't hesitate to also add your question on the chat and we'll take them. If we can see the chat also, please, on the screen. I don't see any more questions. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, RG. Again, I mean, I would like to thank you so much and our colleagues from NASA, but also JAXA and all the partners from Mexico. And I mean, long list of people participating and contributing to EU4SDG. I mean, we have done for this first part what has been done. We are midway, as RG said, and now we're gonna take A second part of this side event will be about what's next. To 2030, we still have time to improve. We can do progress. We have new things coming. And so we will do that through some short presentation followed by a panel discussion. And we will start with our colleague here, Lorenzo De Simone, from FAO, from the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Lorenzo has a PhD in agriculture engineering. He's a technical advisor for the geospatial and the Office of Chief Statistician of the FAO. And he also serves as a co-chair of the UN task team on EO data for agricultural statistics under the UN Committee of Experts on Big Data and Data Science for Official Statistics. And he's also the chair of the board of the EO for SDG. Lorenzo, thank you for being here. I'm going to give you the mic. If our colleagues can now put the presentation, the PPT presentation, PowerPoint presentation I shared with you. Take it to, I will give some technical support. You can stay.
And how do I control the slides? Do I have a remote control? Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for having me here. It's my honor. And today I'd like to briefly provide an overview of what FAO is doing in terms of Earth observation data for SDG. That's not my slide yet, just a second. So, well, while they're loading the slide, so as you know, FAO is custodian agency for 21 SDG indicators. And in its capacity as a custodian agency, it's responsible for supporting countries into the reporting cycle of those 21 SDG indicators. And under this mandate, it includes also capacity building, development of methodologies, delivery tools that facilitate the reporting of the SDG indicators. And we also liaise with the IAG, so the Interagency Expert Group on SDG, to whom we can submit requests for amendments of SDG metadata and changes. And we implement capacity building programs in countries. Next slide, please. So main contributions specifically related to Earth observation for SDG monitoring. So the development of Earth observation methods for the direct and indirect SDG estimation, the development of methods for SDG disaggregation, development of methods to produce fundamental geospatial layers, which are then functional for the measurement of specific SDG indicators. Fundamental geospatial layers as they are defined by the Integrated Geospatial Information Framework developed by the UN GGIM. And specifically, I'm referring to land cover and land use maps. And furthermore, capacity building in more than 44 countries in the use of Earth observation data for SDG monitoring. Next slide, please. So this is, okay, this slide was supposed to be animated, but anyway, the point is that we have this indicator 15.4.2, which is the mountain green cover index, which in my view can act as a role model for the use of Earth observation for monitoring, but also for the process of communicating, developing new methods and officializing them within the SDG reporting framework. So what happened is that FAO invested in 2020 in development of a new method, which was entirely relying on Earth observation data, and more specifically on the standardized land cover maps, time series maps. The method that was tested in countries was published, and then it was submitted to IAG for endorsement. The methods was appreciated by countries, so we increased the reporting rate on that indicator. Recently, in 2021, 2022, such methodology has been further refined to integrate the dimension of land cover degradation into the Green Mountain Cover Index as a result of the feedback from reporting countries. And now the new proposed method for 15.4.2 has been endorsed by the AG SDG in July 2022, and the refined methodology is currently being validated in countries. So we hope now to use this new methodology in February 2023 for the new reporting cycle. We are agnostic in terms of technology. So once a method is developed, once the procedure is clear, then you can use basically any platform, ArcGIS Pro, Google Earth Engine, Digital Earth Africa, CPAL, you name it. Next. regarding, this is an example for 2.4.1, which is sustainable agriculture. So this is probably one of the most controversial SDG indicators. It's quite complex to measure this indicator. It has many dimensions inside, many themes, and many sub-indicators under those themes. So a study was carried out by Wageningen University in collaboration with FAO. And we managed to identify how Earth observation data could be functional to the measuring of this SDG indicator. And clearly we could see that Earth observation data could be used for the themes of soil health and water use. So soil erosion, reduction of soil fertility, I can read so far, salinization of irrigated land, water logging. However, it cannot really be used for all of those indicators. So it's just for some of them. And the idea here there is really to discuss with countries to see how Earth observation data can be used to monitor just part of this and then harmonize with the rest of the data, which is gathered through field surveys, farm surveys, or if there can be space instead for countries to come up with proposals, of course, providing technical help to develop a proxy, which then could be submitted to the IAG as an alternative solution based on Earth observation data solely. Next, please. Furthermore, FAO has recently developed guidelines on data disaggregation for SDG indicator using survey data, which means reference data. It's an initial step. The guidelines were published in 2022. The use of in situ data identifies also requirements for the Earth observation data, hence the satellite images. It has been tested with georeference microdata from Ethiopia, Malawi, and Nigeria, and it's based on extension of the projection estimator, which was proposed by Kim and Rao in 2012. Next slide. Of course, we're not alone in this, so we work through partnerships so that we can achieve more and reach farther. So we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the European Space Agency. We have an ongoing collaboration with Digital Earth Africa. We have a memorandum of understanding signed with University of Louvain, a collaboration with Michigan State University that's especially on crop yield forecasting. FAO is co-chair of the UN task team on Earth observation data under the UN Committee of Experts on Big Data and Data Science. So through that mechanism, we try to enforce standardization of methods. And finally, we collaborate with GeoGlam and GEO in situ initiative. Next slide. So opportunities for the future. Well, there are many things that could be done, of course. We think that prioritizing the use of Earth observation data to help countries to achieve targets and not just focusing on the use of Earth observation data just to monitor progress. So more of the let's say core use of Earth observation data. Better integration of statistics and geospatial data. So use of Earth observation data, for instance, for agricultural census design and use of best practices in georeferencing. So geospatial can help statistics to improve their survey design, we think. And then better in situ data can be used for Earth observation applications. And finally, improve the methods to use Earth observation data for monitoring in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I can't agree more on the fact that we have to move to mainly reporting to also helping the country to reach the targets. We have to keep both, but thank you for this point, very important. To continue this first presentation, I will invite Alessandra Casaza. Alessandra, you are online. Hi, how are you doing? It's pity you're not with us in Accra. Lovely place to be this week. So you have a long experience at UNDP. You worked there for more than 20 years, and you are now the manager of the Resilience Hub. You also have experience working from regional to global level and with the private sector. And you also have experience in Africa, where you have been serving the UNDP Regional Service Center for Africa in Addis Ababa as team leader. So Alessandra, we were supposed to play your presentation here, but for technical reasons, if you can just share your screen and start your presentation, thank you very much.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Laurent, and good afternoon, colleagues. in Accra. Apologies, I could not make it to Accra, so I'm connecting from Nairobi. I hope you can hear me well.
Very well.
I'm trying to share my screen, but it's disabled. Let me see. I think the host might need to give me some rights.
Yeah, can you try again?
No.
Should work now.
Yes. So just allow me to find my presentation. Apologies.
It's okay.
I'm trying to find it. Where is it? It always happens like this.
Exactly. Don't worry, we're used to that.
Yeah.
You can do it?
After, oh, there it is. I
All
found
right.
it. Can you see it?
Yeah, we are seeing your presentation. If you can put it in full screen, please, would be better. Yeah,
Hello.
that's good. Thank you.
Very good. And actually, I've been following the guidelines, so you will only see images and not so much text in my presentation. But maybe just let me start, Laurent, by saying I would like to thank the organizer for inviting UNDP to be part of this important panel and to speak. In my presentation today, I would like to focus on three things that for me are important, or for UNDP are important. Where are the gaps, or what is missing? Where are the opportunities, and how can we scale up these opportunities? And then I would also like to talk about the capacities that we need to bring this to scale. And I would like to start with this issue of what is missing, but also a little bit reframing this question, because in the work at the UNDP Resilience Hub, and we do work on resilience, we are a think and do hub, we do research and we do test, pilot test, the findings of our research. I want to say at the very core of our resilience work are the SDGs. In fact, resilience we have found is grounded on the SDGs, and at the core of our strategy to build resilience is technology. What we have found is that in the past few years, fourth industrial revolution's technologies have made tremendous progress. And with this progress, of course, the opportunities to leverage fourth industrial revolution's technologies, including Earth observation technologies and data, to fast track the SDGs and to really build resilience have increased tremendously. This also includes Earth observation. The capabilities around Earth observations, data and technologies have improved tremendously. I want to make specific reference to the Africa Regional Data Cube, for example, which provides analysis-ready data to end users, to countries, particularly in this continent, in Africa. And this has enabled countries in this continent to really leapfrog the need to access supercomputing capacity, for example, or to skill people to develop very complex algorithms to make sense of this data because of the capabilities around Earth observation, and particularly through the Africa Regional Data Cube. So the question is for me, not so much what is missing, because a lot of things seems to be there, and Arje's presentation actually provided that breadth. For me, the question is, how do we really harness the potential of Earth observation technologies and data to do development better, to fast track the SDGs, to implement them, to fast track resilience building, going over and beyond monitoring and evaluation. And on this, I fully agree with Lorenzo's point that he made during his presentation. So I want to move to the opportunities that we have, at least the ones we see in our work on resilience building here in Africa. And we cover 46 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So one area where we see we could really join forces and where we can leverage Earth observation data for fast-tracking the SDGs implementation and resilience building is combining Earth observation data with other types of data. For example, socioeconomic data from statistical offices from bureaus of statistics, or even administrative data. So for us, this combination would be absolutely essential, and particularly the development of integrated maps that are able for us to overlay, for example, images around and information around the impact of crisis in certain locations and on certain communities, or even information around anticipation of crises, of disasters that are going or are likely to hit communities, with information around socioeconomic data that are going to give us information and data around where are the biggest vulnerabilities, which ones are the communities most vulnerable, where investments in resilience building are need to be prioritized, where we need to invest in addressing the underlying drivers of vulnerability to reduce the impact of crisis. Crisis will continue hitting the continents and communities. The point is, how can we reduce that vulnerabilities? That combination of these two kinds of data allows us to do this kind of analysis. We are working also very closely with the African Union, with IGAD here in the Horn of Africa, in addressing a very severe crisis. There's a recurrent cyclical drought crisis here in the Horn of Africa. This is the fifth failed rainy season. There are millions, around 36 million people, food insecure in this region. So this is a priority for us. This is where we see Earth observation data are going to become critical for us practically to address the water security issue, which is a priority for this region. I was today talking with our partner in the African Union. This is where we need to invest our resources. Earth observation data are going to be critical, not only to understand where the underground aquifer reserves are, but also what is the rate of depletion or the regeneration, to be able to also apply solutions and find solutions that are adaptive rather than maladaptive. Likewise, even the use of Earth observation data to analyze the fluctuating levels, water levels of big reservoirs, like, for example, Lake Turkana, to give us important information on flooding, for instance, to act in the short term with disaster risk reduction measures, the disaster risk management, but also in the long term, to be able to inform policymakers on solutions, longer term solutions, for example, related to irrigation. I don't need to speak too much about food security. You are the expert in the room, but this is also an area where we're working here in the Horn of Africa, but also in the Sahel, in the SADC region, in Southern Africa. This is where I think it's absolutely essential to leverage these technologies to really increase understanding, to increase information around not only crop productions, their extension, but also their health status, to be able to inform farmers and to inform, of course, and to take decision at the level of Ministry of Agriculture in terms of smarter agricultural practices and solutions, but also they're very useful to monitor also the the entire food supply chain and understand, where the bottlenecks are in food distributions at the regional and also at the national level. A lot has been said about the use of Earth observations data for urban resilience. We are working closely with UN Habitat, actually, and also with the African Union. I'm currently here at a workshop with the African Union and Habitat on urban resilience. This is where we want to start having really practical use cases. We are working in Dodoma in Tanzania. This is an image of Dodoma, where we're trying to work with local governments to address air pollution issues, but also issues that have to do with smarter transport systems, land use, to be able to also understand where we can invest more in nature-based solution and greening the city. This is the vision we have for Dodoma. In Mombasa, Kenya, for example, Earth observation would be absolutely critical to help us to address the issue of seawater rise and coral reef depletion and mangrove cover depletion. These are all issues we are addressing and dealing, for example, with the city of Mombasa. I could go on with some of this example, but I want to close in terms of the opportunity by saying there is a new area where we do need to work with Earth observation data and technology, is the climate-induced mobility. This is a new area where it's fundamental to invest here in the continent to understand more about the nexus between climate change and human mobility. Huge here. We are predicting millions of people to be displaced in the next 20 to 30 years. But I want to also land and close on the issue of how do we leverage this technology for practical applications? What does it take? So I see three things, and this is where I would like to see also whether there is scope for talking about partnership. Number one, it is important to develop use cases. It is important to see what are the practical applications and what are the actual results on the ground in terms of advancement towards the SDGs and resilience building. Secondly, is about being able to develop bankable projects. Once we have the use cases and we can prove concept that the concept work, it's important that we are able to develop bankable project to then move to the third stage, which is that of partnership. So this is not just about the development community and the scientific community coming together, and the governments, of course, as end users, but also the financing power of this initiative, because these solutions actually, of course, cost a lot of money. And this is where we need to start bringing into the partnership the multilateral development banks, the national development banks, the World Bank, and other development partners. Let me close by mentioning also the fact that Earth observations, data and technology, like other fourth industrial revolution technology, to be able to be at the center of sustainable development, they need capacities. And in our work in UNDP at the Resilience Hub, we have identified 7 of what we find the fundamentals on which Africa needs to invest to leverage the fourth industrial revolution technologies for development. These are data systems, these are internet connectivity infrastructure, access to energy. Without energy, we can't power any of these fourth industrial revolutions technology. We need skills, capabilities, the language around these technologies, understanding. We need also an agile governance system that is able to catch up with the fast-moving rate of technologies, and finally, of course, sustainable financing to be able to actually put in place these solutions and bring them to scale. Let me close here and pass the floor back to you, Laurent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, and thank you for all the examples in Africa on drought resilience, urban resilience, and of course, climate and human mobility. We'll continue to stay on time, and our next speaker will be very technical. As you will see, it's Olivia Jimena Juarez Carrillo. I hope I said correctly your name. You're advisor of the governing board of the National Institute of Statistics and Geography of Mexico, INEGI. And I looked at your bio, and something that I really found amazing is as an undergrad, you were the first female member ever in the robotic teams of Universidad Panamericana. And with your team, you participated in the international competition of RoboCup Rescue 2012, and you have the second place in robot manipulation. I found that amazing. So, so Jimena, you're not going to talk about robot today, but it shows you know a lot about technology and Earth observation. So the floor is yours. I will ask if the presenters, if we can now have the PowerPoint presentation on your side, if you can skip Alessandra's presentation that you may have here, and then goes directly to Jimena presentation. Yeah, it's there. Great.
So you're lost on the robotics. Okay, so this is a more technical presentation, and it's also more operational. I chose these two examples, and I think that you will like the reasons why. In Mexico, INEGI generates data on natural resources, among which are the National Land Use and Vegetation Map and the Water Bodies Map, which are part of the spatial data infrastructure of the nation. And I chose these examples because they are overlapping with the SDG indicators that are a priority for Mexico. They are overlapping with the EO for SDGs indicators that can be supported with EO data, and they are also overlapping with the interagency expert groups for the SDGs working group on geospatial information shortlists on the indicators that can be generated through the use of geospatial information. So these are very relevant indicators in many frameworks. The first indicator, my slide's not there. The first indicator is indicator 6.6.1. It's related to water-related ecosystems. It's monitoring the change of them. And due to the lack of the data within countries to support monitoring this indicator, UN Environment Program proposed an internationally recognized methodology. Relevant data are available on the SDG 6.6.1 portal, but however, these were captured on different periods and from different satellites. That was according to the type of the water-related ecosystem that the data is addressing. On the other hand, the national methodology using the Mexican Geospatial Data Cube, Mexican Geospatial Data Cube framework enabled national level products based solely on the analysis of what time series of satellite images coming from one single sensor. So there was more continuity and more comparability in time using this approach. Initially, in one study, 4 lakes were analyzed. One of them you are seeing here, it's Quetzal Lake. And we analyzed this Quetzal Lake with the images that you are looking below, which is the WOPs or the water Mexican WOPs. And in the image above, you are seeing the National Water Bodies Catalog of Mexico. This indicator is comparing the change in the water surface ecosystems in a period of 2 years. So the experts resolved that the outcomes were consistent. They were comparing different data sets, but with a difference of 5 years between them. And they resolved that the outcomes were consistent with the status of the lakes. So these Mexican WOPs, which is called ICASE, which means Índice de Clasificaciones de Aguas Superficiales desde el Espacio. The ICASE method was considered fit for further research. So we were just being curious as to if this was useful for us Then more mosaics were then generated to study the annual change on the Chapala Lake. You are seeing that in the animation. Well, that was supposed to be an animation where you saw the different surface of the Chapala Lake from 1985 to 2022, the one that is above. And then we found that it was a product that was telling us a lot about the state of the water bodies, specifically the surface of the water bodies. But nowadays, seeing that this was a successful study, the national level ICASE series is available for everyone. So INEGI decided that they wanted to produce this and share this with any eager user. It's official information, we can say it. In my next slide, I'm sharing the experience related to indicator 15.5.1, forest area as a proportion of total land area. So in this case, the data from Mexico from the Global Forest Resources Assessments indicates the forest area from 1919 to 2015. I think that may have been updated already, but to measure this indicator at the national level, the land use and vegetation maps were used. I say maps because we have a series, but they are not in regular frequency. And in order to improve this study, considering that the land use and vegetation map series were not in a regular frequency, we use the Landsat GEO median. This is also a product that is derived from the Mexican Geospatial Data Cube, and the result of this research was the result for this research was that we were able to monitor the success of different public policies. This is one example that you may be familiar with, but in this example, we are looking at the state of the vegetation in the area of Montes Azules. This is in the Lacandona jungle. We are looking at the difference of almost 30 years. And this was used then to promote the use of this product, the Landsat GeoMedian. The Landsat GeoMedian preserves the spectral relationship between the bands of the images. So it was a way to have a much lighter product that in a way communicates the behavior of the territory during a whole year. Closing my presentation, well, I just want to add that once these two exploratory studies revealed the potential of the Mexican Geospatial Data Cube, INEGI resolved to operationalize the platform. It was a research project at the moment, and to publish these two products, the ICASE and the Landsat GeoMedian. So I think that this is a nice example of how being curious, sharing, and seeing what other people are doing can become something official for another country. Also worth mentioning that this was open source, open technologies, open data, data technology, software, open methods. The code was there. So it was an implementation taken which had a virtually no code, save for the technical skills that were needed to be adapted. And in my next slide, I have one additional example which has a different story, but this one is addressing the integration of statistical data with Earth observations. And this is one vulnerability index that was also a video of the vulnerability index using census data. So it was integrated statistical data set. I list in that, can we go back? Yes, in the left corner, I list some other examples of applications that are being developed at the moment. They are in the research state, but these all come from the integration of the GeoMedian with different data sets. So it's also a way to communicate that what was developed elsewhere can be used in a different way by somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it was really concrete examples, good applications. It's great to see the strategy at the scale of a country. Thank you, Jimena. I think it's also very nice for you to say how open it is to share with other countries. I think this approach is very appreciated at GEO. Thank you so much. We will go to our last panel and our last speaker. And many people may be jealous of his curriculum. I'm very jealous, Brian. So it's Brian Kilo. He has 35 years of NASA experience and is leading the Committee on Earth Observing Satellite SEOS System Engineering Office, the SEO. If you may have seen at the entrance, we have a SEOS booth. I'll invite you to get there. And he played a significant role in the evolution of the Open Data Cube initiative and the development of regional data cubes in Africa, the Americas, and the Pacific Islands. And I think we have seen one example at the moment with Jimena, Mexico Data Cube. He also authored 30 technical papers and received the NASA Exceptional Service Medal in 2006. Congratulations, Brian, for that. And also the 2021 Group on Earth Observation Individual Excellence Award. Also, congratulations for that. Brian, up to you. I know you will not kill us by PowerPoint death. You really respected our guidelines for today. So I'm going to give you the mic and ask if we can have Brian presentation. Thank you.
Go to my second and only chart. Thank you. So next chart, and that'll be the last one. There we go. So your challenge today is to figure out when I go through these, which graphic goes with what I'm about to tell you. So there's 4 things happening in SEOS that I wanted to highlight in regards to the SDGs. Number 1 is we have a new SDG coordination group within SEOS that's just been formed within the last year. So it takes a number of people in the organization and puts up focus to SDGs. We've knocked out a number of deliverables that have been lingering, and we're very proud about some of the accomplishments in the last year. You go to the website, seos.org, see a whole lot of information there. So we have it well organized, EOS, Earth observation support sheets, information enabling infrastructures, about the stakeholders. And we focused on just 4 SDGs initially. It's just hard for us to stick in a limited number of people to do a lot, but we're focused on water, urbanization, land degradation, and coastal eutrophication. So those are the 4 that we focused on. The second thing is the SEOS organization in general has been a leader in open source tools. Open Data Cube is one that's near and dear to my heart, but I'm not the only one. There's many organizations and agencies within SEOS that have really contributed to that. And I always thank my colleagues from Australia and CSIRO and GA, because they are where the Data Cube began. And we just decided we should spread that thing around the world. So it's exciting to see. I'll give you an example that came about this morning related to SDGs. So if those of you saw the DE Africa session, and Sviko gave a presentation and talked about Lake Nagami that was drying up. So what did I do? I opened up my Jupyter notebook and I said, oh, I've got to show him this example that we have. So we now have a new little application that does SDG 661, and it shows the water over time, and you could see the lake dissipating over time. You could see the dry periods in 2020 and 2021 when it was completely dry, and it was fascinating, but it's all done on radar data. So that's what's kind of interesting. So it's a little different than some of the other stuff with optical. So he's very interested in seeing that. It was mentioned earlier by Laurent about our SEOS booth. So if you want to see some of these applications live, I've got 2 guys in the back of the room. Raise your hands, Oz and Brian. They can lead you through anything tech dive much deeper than me. And so you should go talk to them and check it out. If you have any interest in data cubes or some of these applications, they'll show you. Third thing is regional initiatives. SEOS has been very active in the 3 regional initiatives. If you went to the 2 o'clock session today, which I'll argue with Lawrence, probably was one of the better sessions of the week. We covered Digital Earth Africa, Pacific Islands, and the Americas. And they're at different phases, one of which is operational, Africa. We've got one in the beginning, Pacific Islands, and one that we're just thinking about is the Americas to come for that. And then finally, analysis ready. It's in the bottom left corner.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I'm trying to find a proper spot. So ARD, here comes another. CS has been a leader in my family tells me my voice is plenty loud, so it's microphone. With Surface Imaging Group in CIOS, we are developing specifications for certain types of satellite data products. And it's very important that we, and not, but all the satellite data providers start to think about these specifications should be to enable interoperability and easier use of the data. We are also now going to take a step further, and we're going to try to engage in specifications with GC and with ISO. So that, very good, right there. I'm almost done anyway. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, okay. And so as we move forward, we're hoping that OGC and ISO will carry some of the standards. And I think that would be amazing if we get to that point. It's probably a long multi-year road, but we're going to try it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the speakers. We had short presentations so that we have time for discussion. So we're going to open the floor for questions. We also have some guided questions if needed, but I personally prefer if we have some question from the group here. And also if you have questions online, if you can show again the chat box so that we can see if there is any comment. And any hot question before we continue? No? Okay, so I will start with some guided question we prepared. As you have seen the first part, we actually give an overview of all what has been done. We have seen a lot of great success from Earth observation. We've seen that it even goes beyond now. We have technologies at data cubes that allow us to apply machine learning, to go to many applications at the scale of a country. But if there is one question, is what's missing? Because we still have 7 years to go to 2030. What's missing? What should we focus on in terms of applications, in terms of capacity development? So I would like I'd like to ask our speakers, what are their thoughts about it? I know that Alessandra already, and Alessandra also, we are still with you here. You can also turn on your camera. So yeah, we'll still see you. Okay, thank you. And so I may ask you first, Alessandra, what's missing? Because I heard in your presentation that you were saying that was still a lot to do. So I will first ask you. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks also to all the other participants for the presentation. And I have to admit, I'm not a scientist or a technical person, so I'm a development practitioner. So from where I'm sitting, from what I'm seeing is that I think the capabilities of the technology is there, right? There's nothing missing. I think there is now the need, at least from my point of view, to understand how do we move from sort of understanding the technology, understanding its potential, to really using it for pushing the SDGs further, for building resilience, for having really practical applications. And I think this is not so much a technical issue. I think the technical solutions exist, are there. I think we have seen them today in the presentation. I think it's a matter of saying, how do we partner? How do we bring the entire ecosystem of development practitioners like ourselves, government and communities, the end users, the scientific community, which is you in the room, and also the funding partners, the development partners that can put also the resources together in a room to enable the applications of these technologies of Earth observation data, for resolving development issues. So for me, it's really about getting the ecosystem to interact together and to find modalities, a business model that enable us to do it systemically. if we can do it for 2, 3, 4 use cases and show the potential, I think then, we can, we have a case to make to bring these initiatives to scale. So that's for me what I would like to see happening, not so much what is missing, but what can happen more. Over back to you.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. That's a very good point. I'm going to ask the same question to you, Lorenzo. I mean, from your experience from FAO, what can we do more for the 7 next years?
Well, there are many options, of course. One area that I see that needs to be strengthened is the country's capacity to produce their own land cover data, land use data. They're fundamental geospatial layers. We see that it's still very difficult because of many challenges. One of the main challenges is the lack of ground truth data, in situ data, which you need to calibrate the models and to validate them. So probably science is now, they're working on developing more intelligent algorithms, which are more data frugal, solutions to reuse in situ data. So among the various challenges, I identified the lack of in situ data. But if a country can improve its capacity to monitor its land cover data on a constant basis and the land use using the data cube, using many solutions, then I think the SDG monitoring and also the achieving of SDG targets is supported better by Earth observation data. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll answer the same question from my perspective. I think that there is a wide variety of diverse capacities in different countries. So these different capacities can result in a ranging of diverse solutions. And for me, I see that this can derive into 2 different effects, and it's not something that is missing, just something that we need to keep in mind. For example, at a local or a national level, and I mean when it comes to decision makers, it is important to remember the value of the data ownership, which could likely derive in more confidence and a stronger endorsement of the data or the information that is derived from it. And then the data can inform official decisions, can actually inform official decisions timely, increasing the positive impact of it. And on the other hand, one step before, when we are discussing the research and development stage, a strong layer of interoperability can certainly improve the communication between the different platforms and then achieve easier transferability of the novel methods that are being developed constantly. So for me, maintaining the data ownership in mind plus the transferability is a win-win.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think the continuation of this question, as we have 7 years already of experience using Earth observation for SDG reporting, I'd like us to think about how we can upscale some solutions that we identified. And for that, I'm going to invite Baron Hoare. He's a lead scientist at UNCCD to share an example from your position as UNCCD of what Earth observation bring in terms of support and if you can share with us a successful story about that.
Well, thank you, Laurent. Thank you all for opportunity to be here. And as he just mentioned, from the UNCCD, and the indicator is 15.3.1, which is the proportion of degraded land relative to total land area. And it's been a very rapid and wild ride from nothing to being in a position to have 163 countries report on that indicator. It's 3 sub-indicators, none of which existed prior to that process, but all are based on Earth observations. So it's pretty powerful progress. And I think that, so the scaling up geographically is already there, but as Lorenzo and others, Argy pointed out, we think of it as that's a national to global reporting. And what really matters is what we do nationally to locally, which is all the data, right? I mean, these 3 indicators are just indicative at the national to global level, as they should be. But what we do from there down to the ground makes a big difference. And I guess what I would put to the group is SDG 15 is the least invested in SDG by far. There's no comparison to the others, including partnerships. More money is going there than to addressing land. Why? Because it's very difficult to demonstrate the return on investments in land because it's so diverse. The potential uses are so many. The competition among the SDGs for that land, the lack of ability to optimize, the fact that the data aren't flowing in automatically to planning processes, more and more. All of it's GEO. All of it are things that could be taken on by GEO. So that's what I would put on the table. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this example, Baron. I think it's really amazing what has been done. And as you can see, we still have steps to go further to the local level. I think it's very important. Any other example to be shared by our speakers on successful stories that you would like to share? Jimena, yeah.
Thank you. I am going back to my example of the Mexican Geospatial Data Cube. Those two products, ICASE and GeoMedian, became available to anyone. So now we have our own research in the institution, but there are also other projects that are being developed outside INEGI. So I think that's a successful example of how implemented opening the data can create different uses of it. And taking some inspiration from the theme of the GEO Week that is written on the wall, global action for local impact. For example, I'm taking the ICASE on this question. The ICASE is taking all open, all free, and all global resources, data, software, algorithms, and they are all they're open and global, and they are out there for anyone who wants them to generate anything that they seem them fit. After generating our 30 mosaics of Landsat ICASE or WOPS products, we organize a workshop in INEGI. We organize a workshop and we share this information with all of the offices that are all throughout the territory of INEGI. We have the local knowledge. So in these workshops, we share the data. We told them how they could use it, what it meant, and they responded with different examples of local case studies of water bodies. So we now have over 50 examples that can be communicated through the use of ICASE. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to share these examples. I mean, it's much more realist when we work on those examples. I'd like to continue with other question, but remember, if you have any comment in the room, I mean, you're most welcome also on the chat. If you want to comment or ask a question to our nice speakers, don't hesitate to. Our next question, and I will go back to you, Brian, and I'd like you you've shown us some opportunities already, but I would like to highlight them, one or two opportunities for application, and especially with the potential for operationalization and implementation. We have seen important upscaling, and also not stopping, as we remember what was said before, not stopping at the reporting phase, but also supporting the implementation, reaching the targets. I think this is very important. So can you highlight some opportunities from your point of view for the next 7 years again?
Try to do it without breaking the microphone. I thought I heard it crack when you were talking. The one that comes to mind for me is the Digital Earth initiatives and these regional opportunities that we have. You know, in the case of Digital Earth Africa, it's an operational system, and they're building for the entire region. They're building a number of efforts for training and capacity building around that. So I think it's a wonderful mechanism to attack the SDGs and then to share what's being accomplished there with other regions around the world. So it's very likely some things will come out of that in the next few years that could be used elsewhere. And part of that question is, how do we really get there, and how do we sustain this and do this? And There's a lot of complex stakeholder relationships in all these initiatives. There's sustained funding that's always a need. And then I think engagement of the local communities is really important. If we're going to go this next step and try to really attack the SDGs, we have to get more people involved at the lowest level and in the communities and interested about perhaps the reporting and the final product that goes forward that represents their community and represents their, the SDG, whatever it might be. So, when it comes to something like land degradation that you were talking about, or water extent, we want the people to be interested in that and engaged in that. And then perhaps there'll be more energy and focus to bring it all together. So there's a lot of.
Thank you, Brian. It's quite interesting. I mean, considering that you are from CEOs, you're much more on the application of the data cubes and talking about the new satellites that are coming, because also I see this as opportunities. We have NISAR coming, SWAT. We are talking about water detection. I also see opportunities there, but I really think now the focus really is how we do something with all this data. We spend much less time talking about the new data, super high tech, but really much more on how we can deliver something. So I think all those examples are really much more meaningful, so that we can reach the local people and really support to reach these targets. I think we could continue some new opportunities from maybe Jimena. Do you see? I would like to see at the national level where we are in terms of how your government, your country sees these opportunities from all these technical solutions coming, and how you see, not only you see these opportunities, but what it means for you to integrate it inside your national reporting. If you can give us some comments about that.
Thank you. That's one hard question, but the data cube is a lot of things, so it can support a lot of different information production processes. But the first one that we wanted to promote was medium, because this was a proposal. The GEO median is just a summary, so it's not something that has a particular purpose. It can be applied in a lot of different things. And afterwards, we share that with different ministries for them to see the capacities of it, and then to design their own products. I think that's the main approach. ICASE is more focused on it's focused on water, so we know who we can address when we are discussing ICASE, but the GEO median is an open tool. The Mexican Geospatial Data Cube, talking about the context of Mexico, the Mexican Geospatial Data Cube is thought as a transversal platform for every entity or every ministry, or we call them state units, to be to provide services or information to every state unit in Mexico, but we do have to get them to understand what it is and what it can do for them to start using it.
Thank you. I think it was a hard question, but you actually answered very well. Thank you, Jimena. Alessandra, are you still with us? As I'd like to also ask you the next question, and it's I think we talked about all what we can do, but there is one issue that is capacity development. And I'd like to see from your point, from UNDP, which capacities we must build at the national and local level to help develop this sustained and long-term impact from EU-enabled application and solutions. So you started, but I would like to we focus a bit more really on capacity development, how you see it from a UNDP point of view.
Thank you. And I also would like to take the advantage of having the floor, because as you were speaking, I was really inspired, and I thought, it would be great if I could invite you to Nairobi or to this part of Africa, and sit in a room like you're sitting there, and see whether we could find a way to apply this technology to solve one problem that we are grappling with here. Madagascar, drought, great issue with water, you know, Horn of Africa, Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia. If we could only crack one, you know, issue here in the continent, in this region or sub-region, I think we would have made a tremendous service to the continent and to the people of this continent. So for us, it's really about, you know, I would like to also, with you, be able to take this conversation along the entire value chain, you know, from the theory and from what these applications really are about, to how can they make a difference in the life of a Somali people or an Ethiopian, you know, pastoralist community here in the Horn of Africa. And maybe this is a little bit of an opportunity and a way forward that we can think about. And I'm serious about inviting you here for a dialogue that is actually concrete in terms of capacity development. And I want to go back a little bit to what we see are the fundamentals. It's not specific to Earth observation data, but is really is what we found we need to build in this continent for the continent to be able to embrace the fourth industrial revolution and to embrace the fourth industrial revolution's technologies for sustainable development and resilience building. And first and foremost, this is skills, is language, is that ability to have the fluency around, you know, understanding what, you know, Brian was talking about. I'm sitting in Kenya. I work throughout the continent, and it is very difficult to engage with government officials, with even just ministries at the technical level on issues that are very technical applications and the potential of the applications of technologies like Earth observation without really having the fluency around the language that pertain this technology. So, and unless we build that over time, it's going to be very difficult for this continent to fully grasp and understand and leverage the potential that these technologies offer. In UNDP, we have developed a playbook. This is something we have been discussing also with RG, is the very first playbook is online, and it really aims at supporting countries, you know, government ministries, officers, you know, the development community to become fluent with this language. And this is, I think, is the first thing. The second is governance, because the applications of all this technology, and this technology, you know, change over time very fast, have issues that have to do with data privacy, with, you know, a number of issues. And we don't have yet a governance system that is able to do catch up, that is able to regulate, that is able to even create that normative enabling environment for these technologies to really thrive, to be leveraged for sustainable development, limiting, of course, and curbing the risks associated with them. Energy. There's, you know, 30% of the continent has access to energy. Without access to energies, it's very difficult to really roll out any of this technology. We don't have enough. So that is where capacity and investments in fundamentals actually come in, and also internet connectivity. Of course, we do need this if we want to leverage these technologies. So these are some of the areas where we see we need to continue investing if we want to be able to bring to scale the examples we talked about, and if we want to leverage these technologies for sustainable development.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, because I see that from your UNDP experience, you have many places where you're applying, where you're looking for solutions. It's great to see that you see some possible application from the Earth observation community that is here. So thanks for the invitation. I'm sure many will be happy to join you in Nairobi. We have maybe a question or a comment from Nelson from Geraldine.
Thanks. I had a question for each of the speakers, actually. And you've all raised these really important challenges, really interesting challenges. And Brian, we've worked together a lot between GEO and CEOS, right, on the things that we've been doing. And I was wondering, and Alessandra made some great points, and I was wondering what each of you sees as the opportunity for GEO to help you achieve the impact that you want to achieve for each of your areas there. We've talked a little bit about this, Brian, about how we can connect between CEOS, use the great expertise in CEOS to advance GEO issues and the other way around. But it'd be great to hear from the speakers.
Right.
A few thoughts come to mind. I think generally just building an awareness of the impact of EO, right? I even suspect that there are probably members of the audience on Wednesday and Thursday that truly don't understand what satellite data can do for their country and for their people. And we have to be better at telling that story. And I think Alessandra was talking about that as well. We've got to get better at communicating with that impact. We have to understand what some of these interesting data sets can do for us. You know, we're talking, Lawrence mentioned NISAR, and NASA's excited about that. That's going to change what we can do in a lot of ways. And I was at a session last week on in Pecora where we're talking about night lights. Well, who thinks about imaging the Earth at night? There's an amazing amount of information there. So it's all, I think the awareness is one. The other thing I really think we should push more is educating the younger generation. That whole idea of STEM and getting more young people involved. I'm getting older. A lot of us around this table have been doing this for a while. We need to get some youth in the middle of all of this and get them excited about the satellite data and what it can do. And then the next movement, 15, 20 years from now, this table might look very different, which I think would be great.
Thank you. I think you stole my answers. Okay, so I think that GEO is in the right path. I think that the opportunities that GEO offers is one of them is a well-informed public sector to develop strategies and an architecture for geospatial data at the national level, but GEO promotes that in an intergovernmental framework. There's also the possibility of a highly developed research and academic sector to support the capacity development in EO and geospatial information sciences, engineering, and space technology that are needed to support that. So I think that GEO is a great framework that promotes those two important conversations. There is a lot of things that are being developed at the moment, so we need a lot of young people training to use that and to exploit it in the most beneficial way. So perhaps just sharing again my experience from Mexico, I think that talking to the right person can create a great change in the whole country. So maybe I will just promote really good pitches in the ministerial plenary.
Yeah, so we are a bit late on time. If you can make a very short comment, we have one more here, and I will ask RG to conclude. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope I get to hold the mic right. My name is Robinson Mugo. I work for the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development in Nairobi, and on a partnership that's known as SEVIR with NASA. I just wanted to offer to be around the table with Alexandra because she asked, and we do a lot of Earth observations applications in the field of water-related disasters, agriculture and food security, land use, land cover change, and weather and climate. And two quick examples. I think we are working on monitoring groundwater in northern Kenya and Ethiopia. And we've also had a very nice collaboration around flood early warning system. That was actually a collaboration with UNDP and a few other entities, probably not not in the room. So we'll be more than happy to be on that.
Thank you. I think we have a follow-up in Nairobi. What short comments and then you'll be ready, RG, but it's back to you.
Thank you. And my name is Charles Mongi from Kenya Space Agency, again from the region. I think one of the missing pieces has been a body that is able to organize the other players within the sector. That role has potentially the role where space agencies are able to play that role that has been missing in most developing countries. That is why I like the example that was being given for Mexico. With such a body, then you're able to have bodies that are able to provide that layer for other institutions to build up applications on. That has been the missing piece in my understanding, and that's the role that potentially space organization or space agencies within the region would be able to provide. Thank you.
Very valuable comment. RG, back to you, please, to conclude this great side event.
Thank you very much, Laurent. It's been spectacular, and I'm so thankful I've been able to listen to our fantastic panelists, a lot of interesting comments and questions from people in the room, and also see people online. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank in particular Lawrence, Laurent, Lorenzo, Jimena, Alessandra, Brian, Chris, and everybody else that has contributed to this event, but also the EU4SDG community and many collaborators. I've seen many familiar faces in the room, and also others that are not as familiar, but I hope they become familiar. So again, please reach out and find out more about how you can engage, join the discussion, join the effort, and be part of this initiative. Thank you very much. I think everything has been already, we've had very productive discussion, so I'm not going to do a recap, but I know this has been recorded, so the video and the slides will be available. And I wish you a very successful rest of the day and GEO week. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, RG. Thank you, Alessandra. See you in Nairobi. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you in Nairobi.